Hello, welcome everyone. This is the International Peace Coalition. This is the 144th meeting that we've had consecutively. Thank you all for joining us at this very tumultuous time in the world. This really emphasizes the importance of what we are doing here today and what we've been doing over the last 144 weeks. My name is Anastasia Battle. I'll be your moderator, as well as Dennis Speed, my co-moderator. And I like to remind everyone why we created this forum 144 weeks ago, which was to unite the international peace movement. And my goodness, this is so important today. I want people to take a minute to share this invitation with your organizations, your friends, your reasonable enemies, get as many people onto this dialogue process as possible. We welcome people of many different philosophies, religions, cultures, nationalities. We have interpretation provided for people over the Zoom. Please join and be part of this process today. This will be very, very important. We have a very jam-packed meeting. I want to just reiterate to the speakers, please keep to a 10-minute limit. I will have a timer and I will inform you very gently of your time limitation, but this will be a very excellent meeting. To start us off, we have Hegseth LaRouche, the founder of the Schiller Institute and the initiator of the International Peace Coalition. Please go ahead, Helga.
Yes, hello to all of you. We are now in the 7th day of this war, and we are already on the verge of a full-fledged world economic and financial crisis as a result. There are many aspects I want to touch upon, the first one being the financial economic one, because the Gulf countries have started to shut down their production, given the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is practically blocked, so they cannot export their gas and oil, LNG, anymore. For example, Qatar has evoked force majeure, meaning that there are circumstances beyond their control. This has sent the energy prices skyrocketing around the world. And according to the FT and a platform called Investing Life, the Gulf states have also started a review of their overseas investments. These investments, if you remember, have been hailed by Trump as one of his biggest achievements, because he got several of the Gulf states to invest big time in the United States. So apparently these countries had joint discussions to threaten to withdraw those, also as a pressure on Trump to return to diplomacy. These sovereign wealth funds are major players in the global market. This is Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, and it could have a major effect. Now, Kirill Dmitriev of the Russian Sovereign Wealth Fund says, well, Germany, you have no gas and oil, but you would know where to get it. What about you, Mr. Merz? So, obviously Merz, who completely is backing what is happening, is at this point not yet inclined. However, while this war has expanded extremely rapidly over the last several days, one also can say that the idea of a quick victory by the US and Israel is not happening, and the narrative put out by the Western media is clearly not there, because Iran, in the meantime, has launched an unprecedented campaign against the US defense systems. They have destroyed many radars associated with the THAAD system and also the Patriots. And that means practically, that the incoming missiles, drones, and so forth cannot be defended against anymore. And it is likely that this is even more than the shortage of the missile interceptor stocks, which is basically also being depleted very rapidly. So the latest reports are that Iran is increasingly blinding the US in the entire region. Now, they have also started to attack Israel with the most advanced hypersonic Karam-Shah 4 missile. And it is quite possible that they have been able, with the help of Iran, of Russia and China, to do all of this. So it is definitely a bloody, very, very bloody operation. But given the fact that the United States spent in the first 3 days 5 days worth of their Tomahawk production, it does not look so clear-cut for the United States. I'm sure Senator Black will tell us more about that. From my standpoint, almost most worrying aspect about all of that is the element of religious fundamentalism with which all of this is motivated. And I think looking back now, given what Secretary of War Hegseth is saying, he said, this was never meant to be a fair fight. We are punching them while they are down, exactly as it should be, actually articulating a barbaric language, which is hair-raising. And, given the fact that Hegseth is belonging to these Christian fundamentalists, and according to the founder of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, Mickey Weinstein, in the recent period, there have been over 100 inquiries from officers from the US Army who said that they are being briefed that all of that is going in line with the biblical prognosis that end times are coming, that that President Trump has been anointed by God to carry this out. Now, if such an element of what I can only describe utmost religious irrationality is guiding the strongest military machine of the world to cause this havoc, I think this needs to be urgently investigated. I have already called for all parliaments around the world to demand an investigation. Is this religious component indeed a factor in the situation? Because then, I think we would be in even bigger trouble, and we obviously are in even bigger trouble than if it just would be a military operation. Now, the criminality and brutality with which all of this is going on, not only is international law definitely ad acta, has been replaced by might is right. The attack on the school in Iran, where 180 girls between 7 and 12 years of age were killed, was a so-called double tap strike, where first an attack occurred, and then a few moments later, when the first responders helped and tried to relocate the victims, then a second, even more devastating strike was inflicted, and that is an international war crime. Now, in the United States, the US War Powers Act has been unfortunately defeated by both houses, even a small margin, but it was defeated. It seems that the support for President Trump in the MAGA base is massively decreasing. Only 29% of the US population is apparently, according to these polls, supporting this war. But at this point, we cannot count on the midterm election because, the present situation is one which could escalate to a total war, and we should be not for 1 minute in doubt of that, given the fact that the FT is reporting people quoting from the Tel Aviv Institute for National Security Studies, who say that for Israel this is endgame. They want the total destruction of Iran. They quote a source saying they do not want a second, third, and fourth round of this. They want to finish the job now, the total destruction of Iran. So, this is obviously, then there are reports that the United States is talking to the Kurds in Iraq to open up a ground force, new flank for ground forces in the west, northwest of Iran, to which Foreign Minister Araghchi said that Iran forces are prepared for such an invasion, and that they basically will be prepared to Trump himself is demanding an unconditional surrender, and he wants to be deciding who is the next supreme leader. He says the son of Khomeini, Khamenei, is not acceptable for him. So all of this is just absolutely unbelievable. And if you would have thought this 8 days ago, you would have thought it is not possible. But the world picture is disintegrating in front of our eyes with a rapid speed, which is absolutely breathtaking. Now, the only clear-cut voices against that are coming from the Pope, who in his Angelus on Sunday said this is threatening a tragedy of enormous proportions. This is the risk of an irreparable abyss. Also, Cardinal Parolin basically said justice has given way to force. The Catholic Sisters of the United States and Pax Christi denounced this as very, very evil. And the spokesperson for Pax Christi, Mary Jelinek, said this will all come back to haunt the United States. Now, that is for sure true, but it may not only haunt the United States. I think the moral loss of reputation of the entire West, because unfortunately, except the Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez, who clearly opposed this, Merz basically said, we are not here to teach our partners about international law, and otherwise, he's pretty much backing this. This will come back to haunt the entire West, because this totally illegal, total violation of international law, I could make many, many more epithets to describe this. This will come back because everybody in the global South understands this is against the BRICS, against the global majority, against the effort to build a new economic system. It targets Iran being in a central position in the North-South transport corridor connecting St. Petersburg with India. And it is targeting the Belt and Road Initiative. And naturally, it is a complete and utter threat to all of humanity. This is why we have to double and triple our efforts to call for a new international security and development architecture, go back to diplomacy, cease fighting immediately, but establish a new paradigm whereby international relations are put on the basis of the UN Charter and the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, and help to build a world movement of world citizens. Because when governments are failing in the way we are seeing it right now, it is up to the citizens of our countries to try to organize themselves and remedy it. So that is what I wanted to say in the beginning.
Thank you very much, Helga, for that opening and very, very thorough overview of what's happening in the world. Again, I just want to encourage everybody on the discussion right now to keep getting this invitation out to more of your network. We definitely want to get as many people on today as possible. Thank you very much, Helga. So next, I would like to go to Senator Richard Black, who is a former state senator of Virginia. He's also a former colonel, retired. And thank you so much for joining us, Senator Richard Black. It's an honor to have you on today. Please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me just say initially that, I'm a tremendous supporter of U.S. troops. I fought in Vietnam. I was wounded, and my radio men were both killed within almost arm's reach of me while we were trying to rescue a stranded outpost of Marines. So I have tremendous love for our folks. Also, I am a Christian, and I am troubled by the bellicose nature of some people who employ the faith. It was Jesus Christ who said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, they shall be known as the children of God." So with those introductions, just let me say I am very, very troubled with what we're doing with Iran. I do not see the justification in it. The attack of Epic Fury was initially proposed as something that was likely to result in a popular uprising, and the people of Iran would rise up against their government and overthrow it, and they would really celebrate the dropping of bombs and destruction of missiles. To date, since the week that's followed the initiation of Epic Fury, there is not a single credible report of even 100 anti-government protesters rising up inside Iran. Now think of that, not a single uprising, and I choose 100. I've scanned through AI to find if there's some exception to it. Probably if I had put the number 25 in, I would get the same number or the same results. There is no evidence whatsoever of an internal uprising. Unfortunately, Americans are not very good at looking at things through other people's eyes. And the way that people react, and this is just human psychology, when your nation is attacked by an enemy, and an enemy launches a surprise attack on you, you don't sit back and say, well, you know, I'm a Republican, and so I don't believe in this, or I'm a Democrat, so I don't believe in that. There is a tendency for people to pull together, to unite against the common enemy, and that is exactly what is happening in Iran today. Now, to date, the most effective pressure point for Iran has been the blockage of the 21-mile Strait of Hormuz. There is 20% of the world's oil that flows through the strait, and a very, very narrow choke point that makes it susceptible to intervention and control. The Strait of Hormuz is in Iranian waters. So what's happening now is the blockage of the oil. Now, 20% may not sound like a huge amount, but you're talking about on the margin. When you drop 20%, all of a sudden the cost of oil goes through the roof. Today, it's up again. It's been going up steadily since the intervention. Will almost certainly exceed $100 a barrel, which will have a major impact on the global economy. So the Strait of Hormuz is certainly an issue that we will have to watch very carefully. Now, the administration is very keenly aware of this problem. Many of our close allies are hit in devastating ways by the oil price. South Korea, their stock market has plunged. In India, the Indian economy is suddenly struck very hard. China, of course, is suffering a great deal. Japan imports all of its oil, and so the Asian area is probably more harshly struck than any other when it comes to oil. Now, with liquid natural gas, Europe has a tremendous addiction to it ever since the United States attacked and destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline. Never has admitted to it, but it's pretty clearly evident. So the Straits of Hormuz is very, very important. Now, the administration has floated the idea of sending U.S. destroyers to escort the oil tankers, but that carries the risk that if a U.S. destroyer gets hit and there's a significant loss of life, then it will have an impact domestically. Now, right now, public support for the war is tepid at best. And any incident that results in a more significant loss of life than what we know of so far is likely to cause a collapse of support for the operation. Now, there's been talk already, not only of having some short aerial war, but also landing troops, U.S. troops on the ground in Iran. People need to understand Iran is an immense country. It's very large. It's not a primitive place like Afghanistan. It's a very highly civilized place. And if we get involved in there on the ground, we can anticipate enormous problems that could last for 20 years, could last for 100 years, however long we're there. Now, the trial balloons include President Trump saying that you could never say never to the idea of putting troops on the ground. You have Representative James Comer, who plays a very important role in foreign policy, and he has said that that boots may be unavoidable. Boots on the ground may be unavoidable, but that he hopes to avoid a long intervention. So we've got this signal that there is serious consideration being given to American troops going in. The American people do not want American troops in another forever war. Iran is a far larger and more typographically difficult environment than any that we have ever faced. Now, this is complicated by President Trump's recent demand for unconditional surrender. An unconditional surrender of Iran could very possibly require the landing of American troops and a very, very major operation that would be a major war, not a small intervention, nothing like the others. So if we had this, we're looking at major troop landings, and we're looking at the very great possibility of a massive bloodletting of the Iranian population and a virtual destruction of their civilization at enormous cost to the world and to, of course, their people. Now, we're involved in a massive chess game right now. It appears that Iran does have the capacity to outlast us with missiles. However, their real Achilles heel is with their launchers. The US and Israel have total air dominance, and they're doing everything possible to knock out the launch sites to stop Iran from firing those missiles. The outcome of this chess game is unclear. I don't think that anyone can say for sure what the outcome will be. The idea, I think, with the United States and Israel is to inflict such punishing pressure that there will be essentially a surrender, an unconditional surrender. We do have this. I will note that the top Iranian officials who were killed, including Ayatollah Khamenei, showed remarkably poor judgment and weak leadership by their aging leaders. They violated the most basic principle of security, where they set a very distinct pattern. They met in a very obvious place. Apparently, they were suckered in by this idea of peace negotiations. And as we have spoken about many times, peace negotiations are routinely employed as cover for Israeli surprise attacks. And anytime they're underway, anyone fighting with Israel or the United States now needs to anticipate that before those those negotiations are complete, there's a very high level of danger that there will be an attack launched. And this is exactly what will happen. But now that there has been a number of senior Iranian leaders eliminated, they had set in place very, very clear plans for succession. And the death of these senior leaders will bring about a younger, less gullible, more dynamic generation to power. Keep in mind that the Ayatollah Khomeini, I think he was something like 86 years old, a relatively moderate person, you would not believe it. Unfortunately for Iran, the first Ayatollah, Ayatollah Khomeini, was an incredibly brutal person, and the Ayatollah Khamenei was not of a similar nature.
Pardon me, Senator Black, if you could just take a few more seconds.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And so I would just wrap up. I think we became tremendously overconfident because of our great success in Venezuela. We do have the problem, what happens if Iran keeps fighting after we decide that it's time to stop? That could very easily happen. And I am very concerned about the movement of Kurds and the idea of trying to inspire a terrorist movement within Iran. I'm very conscious of the fact that we have been carefully herding the ISIS families and troops that we captured in Syria, and we have moved tens of thousands of them into Iraq, where they could be postured for movement into Iran. I would very, very much hate to see the United States closely allied with Al-Qaeda and ISIS in an undercover operation to undermine the nation of Iran. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Black. That was very important intelligence that you're giving us today. Thank you so much for joining us and making the time to do this. It was very good. Thank you very much. So next, we'll continue with our agenda. Next, we have Maria de los Angeles Huerta, former Congresswoman of Mexico. Thank you so much for joining us, Congresswoman Huerta. Please go ahead. You have the floor.
Sí, con mucho gusto. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. As March 2nd, we made some proposals so we can have a fight the global citizenship. I wanted to present the task that I wanted to present for this participation. Until now, we have very good analysis and we have been able to diagnose. We have seen the monster in the eyes, and we can see it is not a collection of isolated phenomena, but this topic of the deprivation, sexual deprivation of the elites have shown this impunity and worldwide, and this is a machinery, war machine all over the world, and we can see a system which is a worldwide system of depredation. And my question is, how can we stop only with the analysis and the reflection and understanding what is going on, or is that only important? And as Helga has said many times, we have to be capable of denouncing and to say what is going on. But in addition, we are all here together because we want to go one step beyond from the analysis. And after denouncing, we have, in a collective way, we have to act. We always see when we have a crisis and where there is when we act in a coordinated way. Also in Mexico, we have a journalist that she started a protection network that she started to make denounce, and the feminist movement can change the conscience of the people. The mobilization pro peace has shown that we can do something, even though they are telling us there is nothing we can do. We have learned a lot from organizations. That is not enough to say. Indignation is not enough. It's a strategy that doesn't have any accomplishments, and we need to act. And I have a lot of admiration and praise for the Schiller Institute, for Hegseth LaRouche and everybody, because we are thinking how to go beyond reflection and analysis from the reaction, the immediate reaction, and we have to build something that will be to the level of the challenge we are facing, because those elites, they want to act without impunity, and we have to organize globally. It's not enough with testimony or reflection or signing manifests, but we need to have a network to be able to protect those who are being under attack from those fascists. I want to share with all of you the product of this reflection that is started on March 5th. I will present 5 proposals that we can consider to start 5 lines of action that could be ambitious, but they are necessary if we want to be to the level of this historical moment that we are living. And it's not something that occurs to me, but they are tools. First, we have spoken about making an we have to understand the global exploitation and in the economy. The first battle should be against the darkness, what is not shown, what is not clear. And this proposal, what we can have a network of citizen investigation. We can have activists and citizens worldwide that they have a goal, which is to understand the ADN of the money of the depredation of the banks, which money funds, which corporations, which fiscal paradise that they are supporting the industry, this deprivation network, and this sexual deprivation. So it's not strange that the same banks that are financing missiles, they have companies in the islands where the money from the traffickers is hidden. So the objective is to create a level of shame, public shame to those people, at least that we can share, that would be accessible, that would be shared, and we'll have like the Epstein list, which will be global, and it will be part from the citizens. And the second level, we have to organize investments, massive investments. Once we have identified the actors, the banks, we have to have global campaigns as we have done on the Palestine issue, and denouncing the armamentist companies. We have to denounce the institutions and the banks. We have to hit their winnings, and so we have to use all the tools of communications. We have the social networks, alternative social networks worldwide, so the information will not be close to small circles, but we want to create a great network, a world network, to denounce the deprivation, the institutions of deprivation of the war, etc. Second, we want to have a global observation to denounce the elites, because the memory is revolutionary. While the powerful have an army of lawyers and public relations, and they own the communication networks, etc. And in that way, they bury their crimes under the disinformation. And we, as citizens, have to be the memory of that and not be a stop. We can, through the observatory and citizen groups in every country, we can have three tasks. We can investigate all the cases, from the Epstein Island to the Gaza massacre, and what is going on with the ones who are raping children in every country, going after the structures that are responsible for these crimes. Second, we can have a political and legal battle when we have experts and organizations like the UN and the different organizations. We know they haven't been doing a good job, but the citizens' pressure worldwide can have some power. We have to change this citizens' voice to learn the diplomats and the leaders of global organizations that they have an obligation and they have to do the things correctly. And then we have to have a library of infamy where we can have the documentation, the evidence. So that's an archive that any journalist and even a victim, every person can have access to that information that the all powerfuls don't want them to be known. And also, so we have to act. To denounce without acting is not effective. So we can have this global coordination, and because of that, we have to go beyond liking something and or that this is being presented in the social networks, what is going on right now. And we have to go to the next step, which is to put pressure so we can build a capacity to mobilize internationally. For example, we can have in a day, in a coordinated way, citizens of the world are acting, having action, not non-violent action, but do something symbolic and visible. So performances, demonstrations in front of banks that are accomplices, so they can explain that the money is financing bombs that are killing children, girls in Iran, or the children in Gaza. And so we can have concentrations.
Pardon me, Senora Huerta. if you could just take, I'm sorry, I know you have a couple more items, but if you could just take one more minute, and then we can always come back. Gracias.
Gracias. Gracias, perdón. Cierro con esto.
Yes,
Esta acción directa no
very
violenta no se
good.
coordina globalmente. El
So
cuarto punto sería
the fourth
incidir en los
level
organismos
will be
multilaterales
to
desde abajo,
mobilize
ya lo
the
mencionaba
the
la organización
multilateral
pero que la
organizations
ciudadanía sea una
from the
especie de
base,
forma de
so the
presión para que
citizen
estos organismos
will have the
internacionales
pressure
vean que
for
la
those
acción está.
international
Y
organizations
quinto, una red de
will act.
protección para los
And
defensores
then
de la
fifth,
paz y de
we
la
have to
impunidad
have a
que al
protection
dejar
network
encuentra
for
muchas
the
veces
people
solos
who
y
are
no tienen,
defending peace, so
digamos,
they are not
fuerza
alone
porque no
and they
hay
don't see they don't have a strength.
globales que los puedan apoyar. Y
And
estas cinco propuestas, y con esto
so
cierro,
those are my
no
5
son
proposals, and with that I end.
apartados, una puede
And they are not
vincularse con
isolated.
la otra, la auditoría de la
They
información,
can
el
be one with
observatorio
another,
puede convertir esta auditoría en memoria viva,
and
la
so
acción
we
directa
can have an
será fuerza
auditing and then an
internacional,
observation,
la
and
incidencia
then we can
multilateral
have the
puede cambiar el
mobilization
rumbo
in
del
the
juego.
population, which will
Organizaciones, el
be
terreno de
done
juego será
internationally, and then
Termino
we can have
diciendo que
organizations.
desde
And I want
el
to end
Instituto Schiller, pero desde México, que
from the
acompañan
Schiller
todo
Institute
esto,
and
estoy
from
segura que desde
Mexico,
todas las
we are
latitudes que ustedes
following
representan,
what you are representing,
convocar y ser
and
parte de esta
we
red,
want
no como
to
espectadores
be
también,
part of this.
solo, sino como firmantes,
We
sino como
It's not enough
constructores de
to
esta
sign
forma ciudadana
petitions,
pacífica
but
como
we need to
movimiento
build the
a la mejor
citizen
y a la mejor,
force
porque
so
sin
we can stop
organizarse no
these
siempre podríamos
crimes.
hacerlo. Muchas gracias.
And without
Podemos
organizing
reproducir
ourselves, we won't be able to do it.
Saludos.
Thank you very much, and I'm here listening to all of you.
Gracias, señora. Gracias, señora Huerta. Thank you very much. We'll continue and then come back for more dialogue. So next, I'd like to go to Dr. Beatriz Vicio, Associate Professor at the Postgraduate Program of Comparative History at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor Vicio. Please go ahead. You have the floor.
Muchísimas gracias,
Thank you very much,
Un
Anastasia.
gusto volver a
I'm
estar
very
compartiendo
happy
este
to be
espacio
with you
tan
in this
importante
occasion
para
that is so
discutir los
important
asuntos que nos
to
convocan
speak
y
about the
particularmente en este
topics
momento para
that you
pensar
mentioned, and
formas
also to
de
think about
fortalecer el
ways
movimiento en favor
to
de la paz.
strengthen the movement in favor of
Comienzo
peace. I
recordando,
want to
creo que
start
todos de todas
reminding
maneras lo tenemos muy
everybody,
claro,
and even
que
though we
la
are very
agresión
clear
que está
that the
sufriendo
aggression
Irán
that
por parte
Iran
de
is
Israel y
suffering
de Estados
from
Unidos
Israel and United
es
States
ilegal,
is
no ha dado Irán
illegal.
ningún tipo de motivo, o sea, es
Iran
ilegal desde el
hasn't
punto de vista
made
del
commit
derecho,
any crime
no
from the
hay
standpoint of
motivación
the
por
law.
ningún tipo de
There is no
comportamiento de Irán que
motivation
lo provoque.
from
Ha
anything
sido,
that
al
Iran has
contrario,
done to
Irán
provoke
objeto
this. On
de
the
una
contrary,
traición en su buena
Iran
fe,
has
pues
been
se ha dado la
attacked,
agresión
and
en un momento en que el propio
and in no
mediador
moment
Omán
has been
declaraba que
aggressive,
había
and even
avances en el
Oman, the
diálogo que se habían
mediator, has said
establecido para
they were
llegar a acuerdos
advancing
en la
in the
mesa de
dialogues in order
negociaciones,
to have
de
agreements
manera
in the
que
negotiating table.
mirado desde
So
todo punto de
if
vista,
we look at
el
this from
momento
every
actual que nos
standpoint, the
aproxima, inclusive,
moment
como ya
that we
algunos
are
analistas
living,
lo han
as some
mencionado,
analysts
a la
have mentioned,
posibilidad de un enfrentamiento
the
nuclear,
possibility of
no
a
tiene
nuclear
ninguna
confrontation.
justificativa
There is no
racional más
justification. There is
allá
no
de la
rational
ambición, en
justification
particular
beyond
de
the ambition,
Israel,
in particular from Israel,
deshacerse
of
de un
getting rid
adversario
of
que
an
se ha
adversary
opuesto
that has been
sistemáticamente
against
a los afanes
systematically to the
expansionistas y que ha
expansive
defendido
expansion that
al
Israel
pueblo
wanted,
palestino
and
frente al
also
genocidio, como claro
because it
otros
had
pueblos
defended
en
the
el mundo lo han hecho.
Palestinian against the
Me ha
genocide,
parecido muy
as
oportuna
other countries have done. I think it's very important the denouncement made by Francesca Albanese, who has been a leader from the UN and has been defending the Palestinian people. She has been denouncing the genocide against, and we can see Gaza is not an exception. In reality, Gaza shows us a methodology to squash or eradicate all who oppose to imperialism and its plans, represented, she said, by United States and Israel and their allies. This warning, it's let's say, very adequate to the tsunami, to the great tsunami, as we can call it, as this week of war has been in the region of Middle East or Southwest Asia, as people in the region prefer to call it, not so they wouldn't use the colonial use of the Middle East. It's a moment that we can see but because of this war, we don't see the letter that was sent yesterday, an open letter sent to President Trump by one of the most important representatives of the biggest fortunes of the Arab Gulf, that has had a very important role in the Emirates government. The letter from Khalaf Ahmad al-Abdur. It's interesting the attitude that this billionaire had to address the letter to President Trump, questioning his decision to attack and launch a war against Iran. And in his text, he questions the legitimacy of the initiative of the American president, asking him who gave him authority to drag all the region to a war against Iran, who gave him permission, literally, to transform our region in a battlefield. And beyond these questions, which are difficult to answer, that Trump will not be able to answer, the letter says that the Gulf countries, are members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, where they have very important financial interests, and they will start to feel the consequences of the war. And then they have all these billionaires and they wanted to participate at the peace initiative, where several members of the Gulf countries wanted to contribute and contributed to the peace initiative. And they were asking what happened to that peace initiative. It has been destroyed even before it can show any results. So the letter shows the consequences of the first days of war from the standpoint, humanitarian standpoint, but also from the infrastructure and the economy. In a way, shows we can see how frustrated, so we can say in a subtle way, how frustrated they feel the countries in the region that are ally of the United States, that have military bases from United States, to see their sovereignty completely ignored. Once, as Mr. Abdul said, have been dragged into this war that they don't want, and they were not even consulted to have. The same can be said from other allies. The senator who spoke before and who gave us a very important briefing from inside the American army, he reminded us how important is the effect of this war to other allies of United States in the region, like Japan and South Korea. So we are in a moment where the geopolitics, that seemed to be immobile, it is put into question, and with so fast is changing, and is showing a possibility of a change of alliances that were not even in the radar. That is not something that we can that can allow us to breathe. But on the contrary, I have been very carefully listening to several debates, trying to understand the dimension of what is the situation and the consequences, even for us, Latin America, and several military members of the United States that have some influence. They are calling attention to how imprudent this initiative by Trump has been, that even can some of them mentioned that president could be impeached, as many already think that would be the result of the losing elections, midterm elections, that could change the situation inside the United States and have a conclusion that something that President Trump was not intending. Since my time is ending, I have to leave the meeting. I am sorry. I have already another event in a few minutes I have to attend. I want to say a concrete initiative. I support completely what our colleague from Mexico supported. Our colleague Huerta, her 5 suggestions are very important. Everything she mentioned, and I will be happy to continue the dialogue, how to make this realize these initiatives. I wanted to present something very practical. Very soon, on June 17th, I would have to start. We will have the Soccer World Cup, which will happen in United States, in some cities of United States and some of Canada and Mexico. Even the opening will be in Mexico, but we will have New York, Miami, Atlanta, Seattle, San Francisco, Philadelphia, very important cities where the soccer cup will be played. So we have to start from now to tell that it shouldn't happen in an environment where we can have a nuclear event. In that, we should say that that very important event should not occur in United States. And also, I want to reiterate an idea that I made in my first intervention in another occasion, that we cannot we cannot allow that United States continue hosting United Nations. United Nations doesn't have a good prestige. The Secretary of the UN, I think, has has not acted on the Middle East situation, but also symbolically, we should start a campaign so we can have the meeting that Helga has been suggesting, that we can have a meeting to discuss the security paradigm, but but it shouldn't be in the United Nations circle, and it shouldn't be in New York. Because of the dramatic moment, we should act, and in that sense, some initiatives should start thinking about them since now. That this is not going to change the war, but it has the symbol that to represent that we have the determination to fight for peace, diplomacy, and not for war. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beatrice Besio. This was actually very insightful presentation that you have. Thank you so much for joining us and making the time, especially given that you have another engagement right after. So we greatly appreciate it. Okay, we shall continue, and I'm sure you can be briefed on any discussion that comes up off of what you have presented. So next, we shall continue with... Adios. Next, we shall go to Francois Martin. He is a French intelligence strategist. And thank you so much for joining us today, Francois. Please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. I'm very glad that you invited me today for the first time for this International Peace Coalition meeting. I want just to develop my talk on 2 points. One point is to say that according to me, the most important of this war of Iran is not the fact as United States is fighting against Iran, nor that the global North is fighting the global South, but that in a certain way, humanity is fighting inhumanity. This is the most important for me, and this is supposed to have the most of the consequences. I will take 2 examples to develop that. One is the assassination of the 165 little girls. This is never something that is a mistake or something that was not supposed to be. It was obviously something prepared and something which was organized. Why? Because when you consider that the other part of the world or of some people are not part of humanity, you create the conditions where you just consider them as ants or as rats, and they are supposed to be let's say, considered as animals. I would say we are all sinners, and God calls us by our names. It means by our sounds. But the evil calls us by our sins. So when you start to say that a person is supposed to be killed because it's full of sins, like it's considered like that, like the Iranians, then you start killing first the children and the girls and the women, because they are supposed to grow tomorrow the warriors which are supposed to be the sinners. So you must kill them first. So it's absolutely not something that was a mistake. I would say this is considered in a certain way that violence is primary to any sort of relation on the earth. So that for me is very serious and very important. And the other aspect is obviously the death of the 87 sailors of the Dena. This boat was supposed to be was coming back from a gala in India, because Modi invited these people to let's create some sort of let's say peace place, where I understand that there were also some American soldiers as well. And at the moment that this boat, which was unarmed, was going out from the Indian waters, it was attacked and killed without any kind of previous announcement. So that is purely an assassination, considering that these people are not supposed to be part of the normal mankind. This is for me two examples of what I say, the war between humanity and unhumanity. And we can also obviously not be able to be sure that the other people are going to act as humans, but we can also try to be sure that we are acting always as humans. That's my first point. Now, the second point is regarding the war itself. I personally don't consider that this war should be very long. Why? Because, as I understand, in a certain way, Netanyahu has cheated the Americans, and especially Trump, in the sense that he has passed him two informations. One is that the Iranians have almost no more weapons. And the second is that they have information that the regime would fall within a week. These, I think, have been the arguments the most important arguments to explain why Trump was taking not a big risk by entering into this war. In a certain way, they have told him, put your hand in the hole of that tree and you will find a pot of honey inside. And he has done it. And instead of finding honey, he has found a swarm of wasps inside. And now he's seeing that the things are absolutely not what he was supposed to be expecting. On the other hand, because he was expecting a very fast, positive answer, he did not spend enough time to prepare the justification to the Congress, what has been done in the past for Iraq, which is seems something very parallel to what is doing today. At least at that time, you remember that Americans were preparing some big lies, but they're preparing it. And this time, they have gone directly. So Trump is sure that he will have a big problem if he starts to lose soldiers in this, because he has no justification that there is imminent threat for this war. And on the other hand, as you know, the Iranians have prepared for very, very, very long time the possibility of blockage of the Hormuz Detroit. I don't know how to say it in English. But now the oil is, I think, today around $90 per barrel, and it will start rocking up. So I think that Trump, I hope, and it should be logical with the last argument that we know that the weapons available from the West are very short, no more than a few days or a few weeks. I think that if Trump has some logics, he should go back and he should make a big speech and say, victory, 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 let's run away. That's what I think he will do. And I think that I see that he's already starting the certain the speeches which we have beaten them very strong. There are almost no more no more boats, no more weapons, no more. So he will be able to say maybe next week, oh, we have beaten them so much that they won't be a threat for the next 20 years or something like that. So he will run away and let the Israelis alone in the war. This is what I think possible, and I hope that. That is to say, it is not so much by our strength and our efforts that the things will start to change, but because the car has no fuel. The car has no more fuel. That's what I think. So I just wanted to develop these two aspects, leave them to your thinking and to the discussion. When I say that, I don't mean that, of course, we have nothing to do, but that our efforts will be to try to find to the United States, if we are responsible, a way that should not put Trump in such a trouble that it can create very big waves for United States, which will be even worse than the situation. And I think, and I'm listening to what the great person, which is Chas Freeman, has said recently, that probably the Russians and the Chinese are on the same pattern. That is to say, they consider that United States should be brought to a kind of power where they can negotiate with the others and abandon, I would say, the neo-colonialism which they are showing now in order to have a more predictable world which would have a room for everybody. That is, I think, if we can find that by diplomacy, by discussions, I think we will have achieved the peace process and the peace philosophy, which is our philosophy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Francois. That was very useful for the discussion today. Thank you very much. We do have a bunch of questions coming in, so definitely stay tuned. We'll continue with our next speaker. We have Bassam El Hashim, a sociologist, professor at the University of Lebanon, and a political activist. And I apologize if I butchered your name. I did not mean to. Please, you have the floor.
Il n'y a pas de problème, ça arrive souvent, hein, mais c'est pas grave. Hein. Bon, d'abord, je vous remercie infiniment. Je remercie Madame Hegseth Larouche. C'est toujours un immense plaisir de vous écouter hein, chaque fois que vous avez l'occasion.
Pardon, French interpreters?
Oui. Alors, quoi?
Let's try again.
Oh, okay.
Bon,
Excuse me. Yeah, he's just saying many thanks for the Oui, oui, ça marche.
Est-ce que c'est
Oui.
bon?
Somebody should show him the thumb that it's okay.
Enfin, c'est bon? Ah, d'accord. Bon,
Okay.
très bien.
So,
Bon, donc, bonsoir à tout le monde. Et bonsoir
so we start again. Good evening to everybody, and especially to my very great friend, Mrs. Zepp-LaRouche. We haven't seen each other, well, we've known each other for a good decade, at least, since we met, and I've had the chance to speak with her before. So I'm very happy to be invited to speak today. Unfortunately, I was informed of this relatively late, so I couldn't really prepare any remarks. But I'll try to give you some of my thoughts. From what I understand from the interventions that were said in Spanish, I could not follow them too well, but first of all, I would like to say that being Lebanese myself, I am neither Shiite nor Muslim. I am a Christian. I am a member of the Christian community, which played a very great role in Lebanon. So speaking to you today, speaking about what happens with, about what's happening in Iran and with the Hezbollah, I have to make it clear that I am neither in the service of either one of them, and I am not making propaganda for any of them.
La manière dont
which the Hezbollah is described today in the media and Western media, and especially Anglo-Saxon media, they're presented as a terrorist group. A danger for the as a terrorist group to Western nations. It is neither a terrorist group nor one which only represents the interests of the Shiites. It was formed under the constraints of the struggle at the time, which went on for decades. I was born in 1950 myself, so this was 2 years after the creation of Israel as a state. And my whole life, since I first opened my eyes to the world, I have known this conflict from one generation to the next, one after the other, going through different mutations, but we are always pushed, and it's going from worse to worse. We're being pushed toward the loss of our very existence. I would just like you to know that the fact that I don't even know whether everybody realizes that Lebanon has become a kind of protectorate of the United States. It's one of the smallest countries in the world, so many square kilometers. It's populated with one of the highest population densities in the world. And in spite of all that, the United States found the ways of building an embassy in in Lebanon, which is over 2,000 square meters, which has 6,000, I believe he said, agents. I don't know exactly of what or of whom, but there are 7,000 employees of all kinds of special services, a lot of them information or intelligence services, spying, or whatever. This is not just a base which is taking care of what's happening in Lebanon for the United States, but it's so extended. But you could probably think of this embassy as conceived as a base for the control and manipulation of the region. But that's not the only pillar of the American influence in Lebanon. There's an air base in a place which is not far from where I am right now. I'm at Byblos, and it's about 20 kilometers from here to the north. There's an air base there, and there's continual coming and going there of airplanes there of different kinds. It's a control post. They also have, the US also has a naval base, which is not far from the embassy.
À moyenne distance entre Byblos, là où je suis installé,
kind of between Byblos, where I am now, and Beirut.
Ils ont une présence, ils ont des bureaux.
And they also have offices in all of the ports, airports, or seaports in Lebanon. And then they have a control which is really crushing control of all of the decisions that are made here. So when you see that the government now in power in Lebanon, when they announce decisions such as last August 6th and 7th, or the day before yesterday, when deciding when they took their decisions about repressing the Hezbollah, you can be sure that this is not, that there has been a very, very crushing pressure that was exerted on the government to do so. So what legitimacy does this government have? The Hezbollah was set up over time under the pressure of the Israeli occupation. In 1982, when Israel invaded Lebanon and came as far as Beirut, took over part of Beirut, there was no Hezbollah at the time. But why was it created? It was created progressively, gradually, between 82 and 85. But in 82, these small groups that existed, they got together, they congregated together to form the Hezbollah. Before, there were other elements, there were other groups that had arms. They took up arms against the Israelis, Arab nationalists, leftists, people from all kinds of different backgrounds. But it's not that the Hezbollah are fanatics. They were created because they were representatives of the spirit of fighting for Lebanon. And they therefore are the expression of a very vital message from the people. And during the division of the, if you look at how the population is divided up, you should know that the extreme south of Lebanon, in the Jabal al-Amel, in the south of Lebanon, south of the Litani River, just on the border with occupied Palestine, which is called Israel. There is a population density there. Most of the population is Shiite since 1948. This is not something that happened. Generally, one thinks that the Shiites came in and created chaos in Lebanon. It's not true. But Israel, as early as 1948, the terrorist groups of Irgun and others who formed the State of Israel and who then formed the army later on, they committed the same massacres in the different cities they went into, these cities in the south. And they were, part of this territory was integrated into the north of Israel. So this population is not fighting as Shiites, but they want to defend their territory. They took up arms in 82 at a time when the state of Lebanon, under the pressure of war, which had a bit pulverized the army, and this Shiite population in the south was completely disconcerted. Its only choice was to take up arms and to fight for getting their territory back, or else to simply give in to domination. So they took arms, they fought, and as of 79 or 80, that was, and after the revolution of Khomeini on Iran, they got the support of Iran. It wasn't because Iran needed agents against a Sunnite here or there. It's because the Shiites needed support, and Iran was ready to grant them that help, that aid. Hezbollah never tried to hide it. They admitted that they were getting money, they were getting arms, and they were getting support from Iran and for training and other purposes. But now they're quite independent. But we should not be fooled by the do I have no time left now?
Oh, I was just going to say, please just take a few more seconds, and we will absolutely have lots of time for discussion.
Bon, je voulais, écoutez, pour ne pas tourner en rond, je voulais dire
around the bush, I just want to say that for the moment, if the combats have restarted between the Hezbollah and Israel, it's not because the Hezbollah wants to drag Lebanon into a conflict with Israel. It's because the Hezbollah wants or accepted to you might remember that the Hezbollah agreed to give up to the Central Power in Beirut. That was in November 24. there was a terrible territorial maneuver during that time between the Israeli army and the Hezbollah. There had been terrible fighting. So at the end, on the request of Israel, the Hezbollah accepted a ceasefire or to end the hostilities, and the Hezbollah did it. They respected this agreement scrupulously, while Israel never respected it. During the 15 or 16 months since then, since the agreement, Israel never stopped violating the terms of that agreement, never stopped massacring and looting very directly in the south of Lebanon. Among the villages, you could see it. They are chasing the inhabitants from the villages and forcing them to go north. So it's not the Hezbollah who's now coming forth and saying, oh, who is coming now forth to relaunch the hostilities with Israel. Israel never accepted the terms of the agreement. Israel continued its campaign against the Hezbollah, and the Hezbollah, after 16 months, found that the moment had come to react, and to react against this aggression, permanent aggression from the enemy. And what is Israel looking for? It's looking to... We tried to guess why it was happening up until now, but now, since Netanyahu came before the UN General Assembly, since he presented his famous map, where you could see the map of the Greater Israel, he presented his own projects. He wants to put the whole region under his control. There are 15 million Jews throughout the world. Altogether, Israel doesn't have the means to move against all of the Arabs. But what does it try to do? It's trying, with the support of the United States, it's trying to divide the different countries. Look what happened in Iraq. Look what happens in Syria. And now, since the regime change in the regime that took place in Syria last year, you can see what has happened, that there are all kinds of conflicts now between the different sects and between the different identity groups. And that's the way Israel works to try and subvert these countries from the inside. And that's now done with the support of the United States. They want to cut the countries in two. Either the Lebanese army is supposed to enter into war against Hezbollah, which would lead to civil war in Lebanon, or Israel says, okay, now we'll take care of the situation. So that's what I wanted to say. I'm ready to answer any questions you may have on this. And thank you very much, very, very much for inviting me.
Thank you very, very much, El Hashem, for joining us. We definitely have a lot that has been presented today, which has been excellent. This has been an excellent dialogue process. I want to go to Hegseth LaRouche to start off the discussion with the panel. Any reflections or thoughts that you have thus far? Please go ahead, Helga.
I first want to say hello to you, Bassem. It's indeed very nice to see you after so many years. I can only thank all the participants for your contributions. And let me just report on one news item which I got in the meantime, which I do not know 100% to be confirmed, but the report says that Iran announced that they up to now only have been using their old missiles, and even those were able to penetrate the Iron Dome significantly, but that they have now a whole new generations of new missiles which are much more powerful, and many of them hypersonic and so forth. So we have to see the effects will show if that report is truthful or not. But I think it indicates that we are very far from the end of how this terrible tragedy is going to play out. I would suggest that we focus in the discussion as much as possible on the proposals by Congresswoman Huerta and Mrs. Bisio, because I think that while we absolutely pride ourselves to always have top level analysis for people to form their own judgment on the strategic situation, I think the gravity of the situation really demands that we try to go into a mobilization as never before. So if people could please, and maybe Anastasia and Dennis, if need be, you can reformulate the concrete proposals they made so that the that the discussion can reflect on that, because I can tell you, we from the IPC and naturally the Schiller Institute, we are absolutely mobilized already. But what we really need is that this idea of an international movement of world citizens takes actually shape in the form of people forming groups, discussion groups, meeting groups, deploying for activities of all kinds. And I would really urge you to please
Pardon, Helga, is she freezing for others? Just that last 15 seconds.
I said that for the sake of, that we really try to prevent that the whole history ends up in a gigantic tragedy, we need now a lot of people who work with us together to implement the solutions which have been proposed.
Thank you. Yes, I can go through Huerta, and perhaps you could help me fill in what Besio had discussed, since I was taking down notes and I missed a couple of things. But I'll go through Huerta's actions. She had said, first, have a network of citizens for investigations of the money from banks and financial institutions, how they're funding the various industries and the connection of the sexual deprivation, and they should be publicly shamed. That was the first one. Two, looking at investments, a global campaign to announce what investments were made in the ties with this Gaza and Epstein cases, looking at those cases. Three was the global observation to denounce the elites. So the elites that have been involved in looking at these various cases, especially those that were connected with Gaza. We can start a legal battle, having a legal battle, and bringing these people forward for what they've done, as well as creating a library of infamy where we can archive so journalists can access these various cases that we're finding. And then four, I know she had to rush because we were short on time, but four, she discussed having performances, cultural performances, in order to help bring attention to this, and then also to create a protection network where we can protect the various people who have been involved and people who are doing these exposés. Perhaps others can fill in for me if I've missed something from what she was saying. I did my best to write down while also multitasking. And if someone else can assist me with Bessio's proposal, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, perhaps we'll come back. I'm sure um, I'll get more of a better idea as we go.
I can say the interpreter.
Please go ahead.
She did say that she proposes that the UN should not be hosted by United States, by New York, and that Helga says call for a meeting to create. One moment. That Helga called for a meeting to create a paradigm, a new paradigm, and she said that this meeting should not take place in United States. I believe that's what she went through. Oh, she ended with that.
No
And
World
she
Soccer.
suggested
She
that
says
the
that the
soccer
World
game,
Soccer Cup should not be
should
in-
not take place in the United
Right.
States, which I think may find a lot of popular support. I think that there was already an idea to have the UN headquarters moved to Africa. I think in Kenya there is already a major UN headquarters. And, you know, if the United States is in any case not supporting the UN by withdrawing from 60 or so organizations, maybe that's something we should start discussing with people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Dennis. Did you have
No,
something more to add?
But well, no, I just on that. Well, no, those are the major proposals. So let's keep it at that. We can make any comments as we go through with questions. I have a couple of comments, but I should probably reserve them at the moment.
Okay.
Like, you don't want to move the UN to a place that the United States is likely to bomb.
Yeah,
So if you think
that
about
is a good point.
you
That is a very good point.
move it, right?
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much for helping me fill in. And I'd like to go to, I'm looking to see who is still on. We have Francois Martin and Bassem El Hachim on. And if either of you have any reflections or thoughts from the discussion so far, please jump in, especially around these proposals that have been put forward.
I just want to say that I will have to leave you in about 10 minutes because I have another meeting at 7 o'clock French time. So,
Okay.
but I appreciated all that was said by my.
Well, I would like to address a question to you, sir, because of what you had said. You referenced that for you, particularly the bombing of the children and the destruction of the vessel out off the coast of Sri Lanka, unarmed vessel, with no attempt to rescue anyone. These were the two primary. So I'd like to ask you, given Professor Huerta's proposals, because I thought her proposals were very interesting. This idea of a global campaign to investigate the investments, but also this library of infamy. Many decades ago, and Helga will remember this, back in 1974, we had a campaign called Operation Nuremberg, those of us who were around at that time. And what we were trying to do was to highlight the fact that there were a series of then psychiatrists and others who were involved in various campaigns in medicine. We referred to them as Nazi doctors. To use techniques, brainwashing techniques, MK Ultra, all of that business had just begun to surface. It would be a little bit later. And I think you raised something very important. So how would you think, I have an idea for how the United States could do it, but this idea of a library of infamy, and also she referenced this idea of cultural performances bringing attention, which I think is that you have to uplift people at the same time as you bring a lot of this filth to the surface. You can't leave people in that circumstance. So just to get any response you would have to that.
Yes, thank you very much. I think you have put a very good question. When I say that I believe that this battle of Iran, according to me, has no fuel, because there is no weapons from the West. They are going to be in lack of weapons in a few days or in a few weeks. So when you consider that you have to go to the Everest, but you have no ice aches, no shoes, and no petrol in your car, you can even consider that your necessity is to conquer the world, but if you have no petrol in the car, you cannot do it. So that's why I think that the United States, and if Trump has some kind of common sense, he should go back to his own, previous strategy. What is to say, to take care of his own people. I mean, that is what we are expecting. But once I said that, it does not mean that we have to leave every kind of, I would say, savage behaviors to develop without having any kind of response. In that case, I agree absolutely with you that we must prosecute, we must really have a complete survey of what has been done, with this school, and with this boat. This is totally unacceptable, and we cannot just say, okay, we are looking for peace, so we will close the eyes on what I'm calling the inhumanity behaviors. And I think this is the way to come back to the normal, by also acting in such a way that the salvage are, I would say, they are afraid to be prosecuted and to go to jail, you know. There should be some kind of something like the new was done in Nuremberg, you know. We cannot just let everyone say, okay, I'm killing 185 girls, and then, okay, we come back to peace and we forget it. The research of peace must absolutely be something that is respectful and respected by everybody. It must be something strong, not just something nice. You understand what I mean? You understand what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. Helga, do you have any comment before Mr. Martin?
Sorry?
Yes. Yes, and I think that we should also include in our mobilization a demand that, you know, the Western politicians, the governments, the parliamentarians denounce this, because as far as I know, there was nobody in Europe except the Spanish government, but nobody denounced the assassination of these girls.
Incredible.
I mean, there was a complete silence, and you know, it shows you the consequence of this will be that the entire world will see the double standard and the complete complicity of the Western governments with what was done. I think this will have an incredible if you think about the condoning of what happened in Gaza, and the condoning of the kidnapping of Maduro, the condoning of the strangulation of Cuba, and by the way, President Cuba said, Cuba will fall. I mean, he just said it the other day. If the Western governments are all condoning this, I think it will fall back in ways people have no idea. The West is losing all moral credibility in the eyes of the global majority. And I think we should ask our participants in this meeting that they should call up their governments, their parliamentarians, and say, we demand that you denounce and ask action on this. Because, if justice is completely, continuously trampled upon, I think it's intolerable. And we have to really ask people to act on that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I have to leave you, but thank you very much. It was my first participation. I really appreciated first your kind welcome and all what I heard today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Francois, for joining us. Okay. Well, I think what we should do, because it's nearly 1, and we have a lot of people who have joined in for questions. I also see a lot of written questions coming in. I think what we should do is make the transition so we can have more of the audience participation and get more of questions from there. So I'm just going to make the general announcement for that transition. So if you are watching over YouTube, Rumble, Twitter X, and you would like to participate during the discussion period with the panelists, you must be registered to do that. You can do that by either going to the YouTube description, and there is a link to go to the RSVP page. Just register on the IPC, and you will receive the Zoom link to join the meeting. If you are not over on YouTube, you can go to the schillerinstitute.com, and right on the top of the web page, there is an item there that you can select for the International Peace Coalition RSVP. So just select that, register, and you'll receive the Zoom link. And with that, let me know, Dave, when we have made that transition.